Whenever you'd like to begin.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Zarina Kurbak, and I'm running to be your Director of Policy and Procedures with the Imagine It Up team. So my past experiences with the Judicial Committee as your presidential proxy, and as a team leader in Olympia as a lobbyist with Bark Against Budget Cuts, I realized that our association is in great need for creativity, accessibility, and advocacy. Creativity because we're not engaging all the voices and perspectives that we need to be from our institution. There are so many people on this campus, 40,000 students. It's important that we engage those students when we want to advocate. Accessibility, because we need to have informed students, students who know what's going on, whether that means updating the wiki or working closely together with communications to get our message out there and get feedback. Advocacy, because that's the next step. Our students need to be protecting our higher education here. We are a world-class institution, and we need to uphold that by letting our Washington legislators know and officials that higher education is a priority, not an option. Thank you. My name is Zarina Kurbak. I'm running to be your Director of Policy Procedures with the Imagine It Up team.
Hi everybody, my name is William Dow, although I suppose most of you guys already know who I am. The most important thing, or one of the most important things for this job for me is advocacy. And as the liaison to the Office of Government Relations, that's something I'm going to strive for. You guys know what I can do and what I have done and the knowledge that I have in terms of our advocacy efforts and politics and government in general. But the one thing we definitely need to do is we need to bring in different communities on campus. We have a very homogenous group of people who go down to Olympia week after week to lobby and testify and do all that. And we need to expand that and really represent effectively and really, represent in a good way what our campus is. And I'm glad to say that I have the personal endorsements of everybody in the current OGR, Office of Government Relations, so they know I can do that. At the same time, I want to bring what I have in terms of journalism skills to increase the transparency and accountability of information, whether it's putting minutes online as soon as they're approved, whether it's making information about student dollars available at all times. We need to do that, and with that, I feel we can make the association much more accessible and better overall.
Hi, my name is Matthew Fitzgerald, and I'm running for to be your Director of Policy and Procedures. I'm running as an independent. I do not seek endorsements. I'm apolitical, nonpartisan. I do not want to see an ASUW that is mired in political slowness. This year, I observed some very interesting interactions. As your Director of Policy and Procedures, the first job is to be the parliamentarian, the rules keeper. If something is happening in the institution, there needs to be transparency, and everyone needs to know what is happening. I observed with STF, which I would be a liaison to, that there was a mix-up with the chair, and I'm a personal friend to the chair. I was in his class, and it was a very damaging situation, but we didn't know what was happening. And it was apparently political, and I don't appreciate that kind of thing happening. For OGR, I lobby consistently on every aspect that I can, and I want to see students from every community lobby as well. You need to tie their interest to their involvement. People who are from lower income sectors, they don't feel empowered to lobby. You have to go and tell them that, your voice is heard. You also have the vote. It doesn't matter where you are in society, politicians will listen to you if you talk to them. Furthermore, judicial is a very important, a very important responsibility for the Director of Policy and Procedures. It's a recommendation, however. You need someone on the board who will be lobbying to have those recommendations passed. If you hear complaints, someone needs to be there to push it through. And I want to be that person. My name is Matthew Fitzgerald. Please consider me for Director of Policy and Procedures.
Zarina, how do you intend to engage students through the daily? And how does this relate to the policy procedures position?
Thank you for asking that question. So, like I said, it's really important that we do have all our students on our campus be represented when we go to advocate, but also when we do talk about decisions within the Board of Directors and the ASUW. The RHSA, the ECC-affiliated students, commuters, the Greeks have not been officially, well, not officially, but they haven't been part of our efforts and part of the ASUW as much as they should be. The way that I see the daily working is, as has been said countless times before tonight, it's the voice of the students. And the daily needs to be there to engage students in what we're doing. And we've been doing a great job this year. with making sure that the changes within the board of directors have been reported to the students. But I feel like there needs to be more of that. There needs to be a way more active transparency, and I feel like the Daily is a great resource for that, just because it is what the students read on a daily basis. And so besides that, our students need to be engaged in creative ways. We need to use different outlets that we haven't done before. It's great that we finally started using social media, and I feel like as policy procedures, who does take care of judicial aspects of what the ASUW is about. I do have that more technical aspect of what the ASUW is about that I can translate to students in a much more effective way than many other board members might be able to do. So that's what I really want to do, is bring together our campus through different methods and creative methods that are much more accessible to students. Thank you.
All right, Bill, of the ASUW bylaws and constitution, what portion do you understand the least, and what are your plans for educating yourself if elected?
Well, yeah, you can probably attest to this. Or last quarter, when we were both co-news editors, I would sneak out of our news meetings at 3:30. I'd hold the early news meetings, talk to writers, so I could make it to the judicial meetings. And I made it to almost every single judicial meeting last quarter. One thing that I've been actively doing is I've been actively working with the current director of operations, Sarah Round, and talking with her about about the bylaws and what we can do, and understanding them. My background at the Daily really helps in that regard. The bylaws, in a lot of ways, my role with the Judicial Committee would not necessarily be to interpret them, but would be instead to work with them and make sure they're consistent, transparent, and make sure we're being held. The board is being held accountable. So that's something I would do. And although I was not on judicial, I'm glad to say that I do have the support of people on the board, people who have worked with the bylaws, people who abide by the bylaws on a daily basis, like Madeline McKenna, the president. And I feel fully confident that even though I am relatively new to the ASUW, that I will hit it ready and be ready to go.
Matthew, in your platform, you identified training about the rules as important. What's already been done for training, and if nothing, what obstacles have prevented ASUW from doing this so far?
All right, so training to me is something that is absolutely critical. You have to have people who know what they're doing from the get-go to have efficient and effective systems. To my knowledge, training has occurred. It did occur early on in the quarter. I wasn't there at the beginning, so I wasn't able to observe exactly what happened. But from observing the results, I was not impressed. To be frank, I was not impressed at all, especially in ASUW Senate, especially in different committees that I observed. I sat in on staff. I'm currently now on special probes. I just got appointed. I'm on Student Transportation Task Force. Let me be frank. As an organization, different groups are bending the rules. They are. They're bending the rules, and I don't like it. I think that the rules are there for a reason. And they're there to make sure everyone's voice is heard and that everyone is consistently going through procedures that have been proven to be effective at making sure things happen. The training sessions that did occur, they were done by the leadership, but then they weren't continued. You have to refresh. It's very important to have a refresh rate because of all the things that I've been saying, you'll only remember a fourth of what I said. 25%. So if I said something 4 times, then you might remember it. Time. I matched a physical action with a word, so you'll remember it. And I want to incorporate those audio-visual aspects to all training. People learn in different ways. And we have employees who do many, many different things. But everyone needs to be knowledgeable of what is happening in the association and what the rules are that regard the interactions. When I started later in the quarter. I didn't know. And I think that it's important to refresh. So I've said refresh, I think 3 times now. I want to impress upon the fact that you have to say things multiple times to get it through. Okay?
Oh, we're done.
All right.
Okay, Zarina. You identify being innovative and creative in your platform. How does this relate to a position focused on policy that has already been set?
Thank you. So first of all, I think it's interesting because I actually did serve in the Judicial Committee as a regular. So I only saw you once there, Bill, but I might have missed you. So being creative and innovative with policy and procedures, I realized that it might not be exactly what you think of initially, but I think this position has a lot of potential to go from being a very passive transparency, but being a very active transparency. And that's why I want to bring in the community relations position, the communications position, the diversity efforts to communicate to different students about our lobbying efforts, as well as any of the changes that the ASUW is going through, or any changes that we need to have a discussion on and feedback from our students. So that's why I see it's important to bring creativity and innovativeness to the students, because we're not going to engage them without that. It's important to capture the students' attentions first, and then be able to let them know what is going on within our association and how they can give back and participate within it. Thank you.
Bill, you've been vocal about the wiki's accessibility, but we didn't really have any problems with it. So what specific changes do you intend to make?
Yeah, so there's two things that I want to do with the wiki. First off, and I think this is a general consensus. If you look at the wiki right now, you guys are journalists. You know what to look for. You like facts. You like information. You like everything out there. That's fine. And you guys, that's great for you guys because it's all on there. The average student's not going to relate well to the wiki. Nobody really wants to read bylaws. Nobody really wants to really sift through all that information. So that's something I want to do. I want to use my background at the Daily of making information accessible. We don't just list every tidbit of information in the article down the line and expect a reader to read it. We make it accessible, and we make it so they can read it. So that's something that I really want to work on, and that's something that I promise to work on as your next Director of Policy and Procedures. Same time, we need to make sure it's updated. It's being updated more and more now, but we need to make sure that's a priority at all times, is making sure, as well as on the records page and other pages online that the ASUW operates, that information is accessible and readable and comprehensible just to your average student.
Matthew, as liaison to the STF committee, what are your thoughts on its restructuring this year, and how do you think it can be more efficient?
I think I kind of presented that in my opening. I think that restructuring the committee halfway through, maybe not the best idea. I don't know everything because our organization isn't as transparent as I'd like it to be. But from what I heard from talking to committee members and from what I heard from talking to the former chair, interesting situation. STF, I'd like to see it have more community input, because there are people on the STF who've been there consistently, but we don't really bring in much new blood. You don't get the new blood going, and I like new blood. In any organization, new eyes looking at things help immensely. They see things that others who have been in that organization, who are internal, don't see. So they might be like, oh, okay, so we're thinking we're going to have wireless for the entire campus. Well, we already have internet for everyone. We do. It's not the best, it's not the fastest, but we do have it. Is it worth spending tons and tons of money each year instead of spending it on other things that more people on campus would find interesting? So I would like to see more community involvement, more advertising. I work the Director of Communications to make sure that people know all meetings of the ASUW are public and open. Anyone can go in. Anyone can raise their hand and ask to be heard. Will they be heard? Who knows? In my opinion, they should be. And I've sat in on committees and I've stood up and I've asked to be heard. And I appreciate that. For every person who's ever given me the chance, I appreciate that. Thank you. So that's one thing I would really like to see with STF, more advertising for what's happening. Because they're dealing with a lot of money. And they get more requests, far more requests, than they have money to do, to pay out for those requests.